Hey there, Battalion fans, and welcome to the first episode of Battalion Marching Orders. This will be a video series where we'll be talking to different members of the North Bay Battalion just to get their thoughts on the upcoming season. Now that we do have a date for that upcoming season, let's start things off. Adam Dennis, you're the general manager of the North Bay Battalion. How good does it feel to finally know that there is going to be, in fact, an OHL season of some description this year?
It's nice for sure. I mean, I think we're all understanding that there's a lot that still needs to happen for us to actually get on the ice. But certainly, for all intents and purposes, it's nice to have a date so you can start planning around.
And you'll be planning for something that's probably going to be a pretty interesting season for the battalion. I mean, you took over a little bit into the season last year, and it was kind of a bit of a culture change for the team. What was something that you wanted to instill right off the hop when you took over as general manager?
I think you hit the nail on the head. Was a culture change is the most important thing that we needed. We needed a much more welcoming dressing room. We needed one that was more conducive to the players working a bit better together. And really, we wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page. The communication was something that we really wanted to focus on, and making sure that the players knew that every day what type of effort we were expecting and what type of things we were expecting out of each of them individually. So I think the culture and the communication were really the two biggest things that we wanted to immediately impact.
You brought in Ryan Olahan as the head coach for the team, and this was a guy who hadn't coached since 2018 after he stepped down from the Flint Firebirds position. Why was he the right man for the job?
Well, I mean, there's obviously a lot of familiarity with Ryan here in North Bay and with the battalion organization, bigger picture. He's been a player here. He's coached here for 6 years. He's been one of the up-and-comers in our league as a coach for quite some time. And I mean, when the opportunity came up, it was really a no-brainer for us. For me personally, I've known Ryan, not known him directly, but through playing against him growing up in Toronto, and then through the OHL, and then through the American League. Just knowing what type of person he is as an opponent was really important to me. And then getting to know him this year when he came back as a skills coach, and really just, pulling it all together, seeing what type of person he is and how he approaches the game was something that's just, it's impressive. And it's really easy to go to work with a guy like Ryan every day.
Now, I remember you mentioning that practices almost right off the bat were taken up a little bit of a notch. And what do you think that intensity that Ryan brought, or maybe just the whole change brought to the team? Because it seems like you guys were playing some pretty inspired hockey once things started to change there.
Well, and it's not a knock on what was happening before. It's more just, I think, Ryan's approach, it really just seemed to resonate with the kids, It wasn't just asking them to do all these complicated things. It was kind of building the smaller parts till we got to that big whole that Ryan's ultimate vision was at the end of the day. And I thought he got a lot out of every single player. I don't think there was a day where every single player didn't at least have some sort of purpose or something that they could work on. And that's a big credit to Ryan and Scott and Bill as well. They really put the work in, and I think that they made themselves available for whenever the players wanted to hear them. And they challenged them too. So sometimes when you're put in roles that are uncomfortable at times, it's how you grow as a person and as a player for us. So I think the way that Ryan was really organized, the way that he put a curriculum together and because ultimately you have a vision of how you want the team to play, but I think his way of getting there really is what sets him apart.
Now, maybe you can chalk this up to the wonky playoff formatting that is the OHL, but you guys were very close to making the playoffs before the COVID-19 pandemic had unfortunately shortened the season. Did you feel as if some of the things that you and Ryan were instilling right off the hop were being taken to heart by players, and was there a lot of confidence that you guys were going to sneak into the playoffs there in the Eastern Conference?
For sure, and I think confidence was certainly one thing that when you look at our record, as a whole now, you wouldn't think that it was a team with a lot of confidence. But if you look at those last 10 games, and if you ask any of the players in that dressing room, there was certainly a lot of confidence. It was a group that believed that they could get into the playoffs despite how far back we were at one point in the season. And I think that was really important is the guys believed it. I think, we as coaches, we certainly saw the change and the effort levels, and guys were really buying in. So it was something that, unfortunate that that the group didn't get to achieve that goal of trying to sneak in.
Now, obviously, this season has been like no other, given that there's a pandemic that unfortunately shortened it. But you guys were set up in pretty good positions for both the priority selection draft and the import draft, to have the number one pick in both of them. At what point from when COVID canceled the season to when things like that were starting to be announced, when were the wheels starting to turn as far as looking at players on who you're going to draft, and the thoughts were shifting towards next season?
Well, we were well in that range already. I was actually on the road when we got the announcement that the season was postponed and then furthermore canceled. So we were well into our work, and I think that's one thing that we were really we benefited this year from in the draft, is that myself, Charles Abbott, and the rest of the scouting staff, we really hit the ground hard early on in the season. So I felt like we had a really good grasp of the current crop. And, knowing that we were going to have a high pick, it was something that we really dialed in on early on. So we were very well prepared. And when they had mentioned to us that there was going to be no more OHL Cup, I think it was daunting to some teams, but for us, we felt pretty prepared in that situation.
We'll get into the younger players in a little bit, but I want to talk about a trade that you pulled off in the offseason with the London Knights, bringing in Russian forward Matvei Guskov. And I mean, I've heard nothing but positive things about this guy, and it looks like he's going to have a chance to shine here with the Battalion. Just take us through what went into that trade and why you decided to bring him up to North Bay.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously London, it's a team that I'm very familiar with, as are you. I have experience playing for the Knights and with the Hunters. So when Mark called us about the opportunity to acquire Matvei, it was something that, we myself, Ryan, and the staff, we knew who the player was. We knew how good he was, how good he can be. So it was something that we were interested in right away. But, there was some uncertainty about our program. There was some turnover. And again, we finished last place in the league last year. So there were some questions that needed to be answered. I think the familiarity that Mark had with myself and our program, he was able to relay that to the player and his camp. And certainly when we were able to show them our facility and show them our plans for next season and the next couple seasons, it was something that they were excited to be a part of. I think furthermore, a guy like Avery Winslow, he certainly helped our cause, and he really made it easier, because when you have a guy that has the familiarity and has just come from the same program, it really gives some peace of mind when it comes to that sort of thing.
So now let's get into the priority selection draft. Ty Nelson, a 5'8" defenseman, but you're not worried about the size at all, are you?
I'm not. No, I'm not at all. I think height is one thing, but I think once the people in North Bay get to meet Ty Nelson and they understand the work level that he has, they'll quickly forget about it too. But it's something that he's dealt with his entire life, and he's been successful his entire life. So that means that he's found ways to play. And I think if you watch the NHL right now, there's a lot of players that are successful at all different statures, but I can tell you Ty won't be pushed around next year.
Yeah, I'm given to understand he's quite the gym rat off the ice. What about his game on the ice particularly drew you towards him?
He's a hockey player through and through. He can affect the game in so many ways. He's very offensive. He likes to push the pace, whether it's by his skating ability or just by his vision. He's very quick. When the one thing we really liked about him is he's going back to pucks, and he already knows who his outlet pass is going to be to down the ice. He's got it, so it's on his stick, a quick turn, and you can transition on teams very easily that way. He's hard to play against. That was actually one thing that came from Liam Marnsby, who, as the fans know, is a tough guy himself to play against. So they played against each other when Liam was with Don Mills. And the one thing he said about Ty was he didn't like to play against him. And knowing Liam, that really meant a lot for us. So I think he can do a lot of things. To top it all off, he's a special person. He wants to give back to the community. He wants to be a leader on his team. And, he's always willing to lend an ear and lend a hand. So that's the type of person that we wanted in our organization. And I think he's, like I said, so many ways he's going to help us on and off the ice.
We talked about one Matvei already, Matvei Guskov, whom you acquired in a trade. Let's talk about the other Matvei you got in here in the offseason, Matvei Petrov, who was your number one selection in the import draft. And I mean, he looks like he could be something special here in North Bay as well, and add a little bit of more offensive punch there too.
Yeah, he's a guy that, as you go through the CHL import draft, it's a different kind of draft as, there's uncertainty who's coming, who's not coming. But our first step every year when we approach this draft is let's figure out who the best players are at the age group. We really wanted to target in on the 03 age group, just given the strength of our age group there, with the Arnsbys, the Christopoulos, we felt like it was a really solid age group for us. And we wanted somebody that's going to be here for a couple years. So, just going through our calls, getting to know Guskov as well, and getting the lay of the land with the different agents, we stumbled across, Matvei Petrov, and having that familiarity with the agency, and knowing that he was going to have a guy like Matvei Guskov in town who's been in the league, speaks the language. We just felt like, that the skill that Petrov has it's obvious. You just watch his highlights and you can see it right away. But then to have that opportunity to have a mentorship, have a guy that can kind of help him through. We didn't bring Guskov in to be a babysitter. I think that's important to understand. But to have a friend, because there is familiarity between the boys. They are friends already. To have that, I think it's really important for a player who's coming in with limited knowledge of the language, and it is a new country. It's totally different for them, and there's enough challenges with that. So I think the way it all came together, it made a lot of sense, and I think that I expect both guys to come in and have a big impact for us next year.
And you mentioned that the Matveys, so to speak, they did have that prior friendship. They actually attended the draft a couple years ago together. I mean, what does that say about a player or both players who were that interested in their future that they wanted to be at a draft when they're not even eligible? At least in Petrov's case, there too. Is that the kind of stuff as a GM that you look at and say, yeah, this guy's serious. Let's buy into him.
Well, I certainly think that you always look for that drive and that ambition, and I think the fact that Guskov, there's been a lot of hype about him ever since he came into the league, for an agency like they're a part of to bring a guy like Petrov to the draft. I think that just shows how highly they think of him and the things that they want to get him prepared for. So it's certainly nice. I mean, you want players that are really dedicated to the game, and I think for somebody to take that kind of outlook 2 years out and approach the draft like they want to be a part of it in 2 years, it shows confidence, and it shows a focus on what they want to do.
One more note on Petrov. Who would you think is the easiest comparable player in the NHL or maybe in the CHL that you could compare Petrov to?
Oh, I'll give you an NHL just because I'm watching it now recently. But I think, his game, he's got some similarities to a guy like a Kuznetsov, just the way that he's pretty slippery. He can find himself into some sneaky areas. He's hard to hit. And he loves to score, and he finds different ways to do it. So either with his shot or like I said, just finding ways into those different kind of areas. He's a very smart player that he can affect the game in the offensive area in many different ways.
Now, you have kind of a benefit of taking over a very young team right now because you had a lot of very young players get a lot of more ice time than they normally would at the CHL and OHL level. So I'm talking about the Christopoulos twins, Liam Arnsby you already mentioned. Newcomer Avery Winslow will probably blossom a little bit more here too. And a couple of other of those 2002, 2003 age groups that have a lot of experience already. Just when you look at this group, how confident are you in their ability to be able to have success right off the bat, knowing that they already have that year of experience under their belt?
Well, I think the confidence comes just because the kids have proved that they've earned it. I think it's easy to say that they got that because we were, on a younger team. But the one thing that would be unfair to say is that we just handed them that ice time for free. I think as we got to know them more, as we started to build trust throughout the different parts of the season, those players, they earned different opportunities and they earned more trust and they earned more ice. So we were in a spot where it didn't seem like we were playing for a championship, so there was less pressure to, we did have that opportunity to get points across to older guys and, put younger guys in bigger situations. So there was certainly that benefit, but certainly it was earned. So I think in terms of, confidence, I think we trust those guys a lot more. So, and that definitely builds confidence in what you think they can do, because We trust that they're going to put the work in the off season. We trust that every time we call them that they're telling the truth and that they're working just as hard as they say they are. So I think that trust factor is the biggest thing. And that, like I said, was earned by all those young guys that got those ice time, got that ice time.
The young guys are in the ice time, and they were starting to push some of the older guys too. I mean, you don't have a whole lot of you didn't lose a whole lot of people due to eligibility at the very least. But if I look at a guy like Luke Moncada, who led the team in scoring last year, and he's got one more kick at the can with a really good team around him. How important will your veteran leadership be this season, especially with that young crop of players?
Well, it'll be crucial, and I think I think that there's a lot of unfinished business, specifically for a guy like Luke, specifically for a guy like Brandon, Mitch, Mason, Simon, all these older guys that have been in the league, and in fairness, they haven't had a lot of team success to date. So I think that they're all going to want to really show that they can be, big pieces on a good team, and there's a real opportunity to do so this year. So. I think that they're up for the challenge. I think that they haven't taken anything for granted over the last couple of years, and all the conversations that we've had with them, they're really chomping at the bit to get going.
Let's look between the pipes. Joe Verbetic had a very, very good season last year. He earned Rookie of the Year honors from the team at the very least, and got a couple of other accolades. And it's only bigger and better things for this guy. I mean, you're a former goalie yourself. You probably see a lot of potential in Joe Verbetic, and you've got him for the next couple of years. That's got to feel pretty good.
Yeah, and you know what? Joe's another guy who I think whenever you go into the season, it was a really tough one for any young goalie to deal with when you're getting peppered with different kinds of opportunities, and it's your first experience in the OHL. So it really was a make or break type kind of a season for Joe, and the fact that at times we were concerned how he was going to handle it. That the team wasn't having much success, and it's tough when you're a goalie in your first year, but I think it just really showed how tough mentally Joe is, how open he is to learn, and how coachable he could be, because we really saw a huge difference in just the way that he approached practices, the way he approached his preparation for games. And I think he really saw a direct correlation into how his game turned towards the end of the season. He figured out what it was like to be a starting goalie. And I think, in the conversations that we've had, he's really taken that into his off season as well. So I think we're really lucky to have him, and we look forward to see him back, just like a lot of other young guys.
I'm curious on Joe up front, though. I mean, he's got a lot of potential and only room to grow. Do you see maybe even some red and white jerseys in his future with Team Canada potentially, World Junior potentials? Has there been anyone kicking the tires from Hockey Canada's point of view about Joe?
Yeah, you know what? I honestly personally thought that he would have been a guy that would have had a good consideration at the U18 at the end of the season had they played. But I'm biased. I think very highly of Joe. If I were picking for the team, he'd certainly be in the conversation, in every conversation when they're making a team. It's a tough team to pick. Do I think that he'll get some looks? I think he should, for sure.
Now, obviously, this upcoming season will have a lot of weird things happen with it, and a lot of details are still to be sorted out. What do you think the most important thing is right now in these coming months in order just to prepare yourself, prepare some of your staff, and prepare the players for whatever this season may hold?
I think there's really two ways that you can look at this as a player right now, and that's you can say, oh, well, I have 3 more months, I can kind of relax a little bit, or you can say, well, I've got a chance to now get another 3 months ahead, and we're only, as it stands right now, going to drop 4 games. So that means that there's a lot of opportunity to get ahead 3 months and really prepare for the schedule that's going to be thrown at us. And I think it's good preparation to be a hockey player. There's so many unknowns that happen throughout your career that you got to be ready for anything. And I think if you have good habits, if you're doing the right things right now, you can have some gains because everybody else is in the same boat. And I think if you can keep a good mentality through this, then you can come out of it okay on the other side. From a team perspective, we're going to start getting on conference calls with our guys about various topics. At the simplest, just to really make sure that they're checking in all the time, so they remember they are part of a team, that we are working towards something really special here. And there's a lot of things that we cover in video sessions over the first couple of weeks of the season that we feel that now we have an opportunity to do right now. There's also things that we want to do individually with players. So we're not going to inundate them, but we certainly want to start some of our preparations that we can do without necessarily being on the ice. So lots that we can do. And I mean, like I said, it is what it is. So as a hockey player, you can only do so much, but there's a lot that we can control right now. So we're going to do that.
And just lastly, your message as Adam Dennis, GM of the North Bay Battalion, to Battalion fans here in the area about what they can expect, either watching, listening, or maybe with a slight chance of seeing it in person, but just your message to Battalion fans for this upcoming season.
Well, I think people got a chance to kind of see the identity that we really want to put together as a team through the last bit of the season. And that was with a very young group. I think what's exciting for fans is, not only did they get to see the start of the growth last year, but they get to continue to see it. And I can promise you we're going to be a fun team to watch, and it's going to be a really difficult place to play at the Memorial Gardens. And, I've been in North Bay myself. This is now my 5th year. And I know, the type of brand of hockey that the people want. I've seen even through the down seasons, the fans get out through a hardworking penalty kill or a good cycle. And we're going to work hard. I can promise you that. And we hope to be a successful team. And I'm confident we can do that in North Bay.
Adam Dennis, thank you very much for joining Battalion Marching Orders here today.
Thanks a lot, Greg.